Good afternoon to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane Pro and HD video blog for Saturday, September 23rd, 2017. Look at Hurricane Maria out here, still a Category 3 hurricane. Fairly large eye in and out as different processes take place that obscure it, and then it warms and opens back up again. Very large area of cloud cover and very well-defined outflow, especially over here on the eastern side. Classic Southwest Atlantic. It's a Cape Verde hurricane. This originated from Africa as a Cape Verde, or what we call now Cabo Verde hurricane, and now it's in the southwest portion of the North Atlantic Ocean, moving. Good, we have these alerts that come up for, don't you just hate Windows sometimes? Anyway, I don't know if a Mac does that to people, but that's annoying. And it throws me off. Moving off to the north-northwest, and the guidance is suggesting that maybe this becomes a threat to the North Carolina Outer Banks over the next few days. Just how close it gets remains to be seen. But this is what we're looking at this afternoon. Fairly well-defined center there. Like I said, the eye in and out of visibility. Very well-defined banding with the system. It's over fairly warm water temperatures right now, as evidenced by the Hurricane Hunter. Actually, it's a P3. The P3 Orion aircraft has been flying out here and doing all kinds of sampling through the region, even using an unmanned aerial vehicle that they call the Coyote, and they're dropping all kinds of instrumentation into the ocean to measure the sea surface temperatures, the state of the ocean, etc., to get a good idea of what's happening here with Maria. Now, the official forecast track from the 11 a.m. advisory package here shows a northwest to north motion and then a turn here to the northeast. Now, this is basically following the middle of the road of the guidance for the most part. We know that looking at some of the modeling that some of it is indicating more of a west turn up here, much closer to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. For example, the UK Met model comes up to about 74 degrees, which is about right here. And the European ensembles is about through this area. Basically, the averages of most of these models, the European, the GFS, and the UK Met, the three very reliable hurricane tracking global models, are indicating that the center of Maria will be somewhere in this area over the next 5 days. And that's the next 5 days. If we get any more of a westward shift to the guidance envelope as a whole, then we could see more of eastern North Carolina put into this cone of uncertainty. And, consequently, if there is an eastward shift, but I don't really see any reasons for there to be an eastward shift, as it looks like the high pressure out here is going to try to build more and then eventually bridge over the top to the north of Maria and offer it no choice but to slow down and then maybe turn back towards the coast before eventually heading on out to sea. How close that approach comes is what the debate is all about. If we look at the afternoon model spread, and I want to zoom in here because you can see this blue one right in here, that is the UK Met, the EGRI, I'm sorry, let me back up, slow down. That is the AEMI. What does that mean? That is the ensemble mean, and that's the interpolated track of it. This blue one right here that I'm coloring over in a brighter blue, that's the mean of all of the GFS ensembles. What does that mean? Well, this is the average track from all 21 members of the GFS ensemble group. And so this is your average. And as you can see, Cape Hatteras, Rodanthe, and Kitty Hawk, Kill Devil Hills out here, Ocracoke Island right there, the center of circulation not far. And if the eye is about that size, you could easily have hurricane force winds on the Outer Banks. These plots are plotting the center position of the eye. And let me make that very clear. So if the eye itself were to be about that large right there, then that pushes the radius of maximum winds out about like that, roughly. And you could easily have hurricane force winds over land in North Carolina. So you don't have to have the eye make landfall for you to have hurricane conditions along the coast. At the very least, I think it's a good bet that tropical storm conditions are going to be felt, and it probably won't be long before we see tropical storm watches issued for some portion of the coast out here That is not my call. Of course, that's the National Hurricane Center after they coordinate with the local weather forecast offices and emergency managers. And so I just think that's coming within the next day or so. Now, speaking of the ensembles, this is why you have to try to look at the ensemble mean, if you will. So this is all of the different members of the GFS ensembles, and there are a lot of them that are into North Carolina, even if for a brief time before turning fairly sharp here off to the east. And that tells me that the models, as they play this what if, indicate that maybe there's enough ridging here and bridging over the top to block Maria to the north that it could turn more to the west and then turn out. We call that shortcutting in, if you will. We've seen that oftentimes with Hurricane Hugo in 1989. It did that over, it was moving to the northwest and then or north-northwest, and then it turned in. Isabel did that in 2003 to some extent, but this is a much sharper turn to the northeast with time that Maria could take if it came up here and then takes off like that. It's this movement in here, days 4 and 5, that could be very slow. And so Maria would probably weaken in terms of the intensity of the wind, but the coastal impacts from this could be very significant, and people need to focus on that instead of what the category is. Looking at the GFS operational from the 12Z run today, watch as it moves around these little wiggles to the east a little bit, and then back to the west a little bit, and then it slows down, and then right before it would seem to turn away, it turns in and gets all the way back to about 74 west, and then it begins to take off from there. But every one of these jogs over to the west, like that one right there, those are going to matter because every degree or half degree of latitude and longitude, especially the longitude line, remember that's the north-south lines on the map, something like that, every degree of longitude that this gets to the west sooner, just hypothetically, if it comes up more like this and then tries to kind of shortcut in and then head out, then you have an exact landfall over the Outer Banks. And even as far south as Wilmington, the Cape Fear region, you have Cape Fear, Cape Lookout up here, and then Cape Hatteras, and then you have up here Norfolk and Portsmouth, Virginia Beach. This whole region could see hurricane conditions, and I think it's almost a sure bet at this point, as sure as you can be. Remember, nothing's 100%, that tropical storm conditions will be felt sometime around midweek coming up. So we're going to be on top of it. There certainly is other action out there. There's Tropical Storm Lee that came back from nothing, basically. Remember, it was a tropical storm, then it died, and then it came back. And so here we are tracking it again, and it's forecast to become a hurricane, believe it or not, but it's going to stay out over the open water and not bother anyone. It'll just add to the absurdly high accumulated cyclone energy index, or the ACE index for the season, which is the score measuring the output of energy for a particular season. And we are way, way, way ahead of that, as you can imagine. All right, well, that's all I've got for now. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. Of course, for Hurricane Pro and HD, I'll have more for you starting tomorrow.